Hey guys, it's Tara here to wrap things up, talking about PICC lines and ports this week and our opinions on either or and what our experiences are. So hopefully you've already checked out everybody else's videos this week, and I will be sharing my opinion and we'll wrap things up with all your questions and comments.
I got cystic fibrosis. See, I've got cystic fibrosis.
So, to start this off, I'm going to share just a quick little background story, I guess, on my personal health and everything. So, I grew up super healthy for having CF. My first hospital stay after being born, I believe, was not until grade 2. And I had pneumonia, and I went in and they just did like the regular IV, peripheral IVs. I have tiny, terrible veins, so I had to go through a bunch of different IVs. And at that point, they used to send patients home with regular IVs in. So I was home on that. My next hospital stay didn't come until the summer of 2008. I went in for a tune-up, and it was the summer of the Olympics over in China, I think it was. Beijing, maybe? I don't know, one of those. I just remember because that's pretty much all I did was watch the Olympics while I was in the hospital. I did a tune-up, so just 2 weeks of meds and such. And then my next hospital stay was not until I was 17. Yes. And at that point, that was the start of the next year and a half of my lungs completely declining. So we already knew that I had really crappy, tiny veins. So they started me off with a regular, just peripheral IV. And then they said they would be putting a PICC line in. I am kind of a wuss and a wimp when it comes to procedures, I guess you could say, of most kinds. So even getting a PICC placed, even now that I've had a bunch, I still absolutely hate it. But it's actually not that bad of a process. The worst part is the freezing needle, and it hurts. They say 10 seconds, it's more like 30 seconds. But after that, you don't really feel anything. I love when I have PICC lines because it allows me to go home. And I feel not necessarily comfortable with them. Like, I'm still super weirded out by them, and I sort of like coddle my arm and I'm not 100% myself, I guess, but it's a lot better than when I have peripheral IVs in and I'm constantly, checking to make sure the vein hasn't blown. It's a Friday, it's a snow day. I'm in pajamas. My brain has shut off for the week, so sorry. You guys get to listen to me talk. Just making sure that my veins haven't blown or that the IV is still in the vein and it's not just dripping fluid under the skin. So I do prefer PICC lines for those reasons, in that, they don't move. They are in place and you don't have to worry about it as much for veins collapsing or anything going wrong per se. So I guess that's kind of a peace of mind. I believe I have had only less than 10 PICC lines. For the most part, they've been in for either just the 2-week hospital stay, or they've been in for the hospital stay after that was a month, and the one after that was 2.5 months. And then we kept that PICC line in until I had transplant. So basically, once I got my first PICC line, we started leaving them in longer and longer, and they are great to have in even if you're not on IVs. I found even just hooking up to saline occasionally was great because I am always dehydrated, always, and especially in the winter when it's dry. and the heat's on and everything is just bleh. And they were able to draw blood from my PICC line because I had the double lumen. So that was an added bonus as well. They didn't have to poke me in my already crappy veins for blood work, which I was doing fairly regularly. I know when you're in hospital, it's pretty much on a daily basis. But yeah, so I have never had a port myself. The thought of one does not appeal to me at all. I have many friends that have ports and they're like, it's amazing, I love my port, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. Basically, I don't like procedures. I don't like having things in me. And the thought of just having like the port in me and like, I don't like it. I know they're easy. I know they're great. They're not at risk of being like pulled out like a PICC line if it gets caught on anything, but I still just, it kind of creeps me out, and I hope to not need it ever. Now, all that being said, yes, I'm a wuss and I hate procedures and things creep me out and I don't like things in me. But if I had the need for one, I think I would be game for it. I do almost prefer PICC line over peripheral if it is going to be an extended period of time for antibiotics. I did IVIG treatment, which is also a rejection form of rejection treatment. And that was once a month. I was getting about 6 or 7 hours worth of an IV med, and for that we just did a peripheral. We did that for probably close to 15 months. I was not about to get a PICC line placed to be used once a month, and then have to kind of maintain it and deal with it the rest of the time. So that we stuck with peripherals. I had a tough time getting poked a few times, but for the most part they got it first try. So I really am, I guess you could say, like, my motto is the least invasive method first. But yeah, I had success for the most part with that. So yeah, I guess I've only had a PICC line once since transplant because I had it in almost exactly a year ago. So February of 2017. I can't believe it's already February of 2018. Like, where has time gone? I still feel like it could be Christmas again, but that's just me. So a year ago, I had that PICC line. I was sick with the flu and a chest infection that they thought was probably going to be pneumonia, and it was awful. So I had a PICC line put in. I did my first dose of antibiotics in the hospital in Toronto, and then I was able to come home to Sarnia, which is like 3.5 hours away, and stay at home for the rest of that 2 weeks. I think we might have bumped it to 3 weeks just to finalize things. And then we left the PICC line in just with the idea of they were hoping I would have gotten a call for lungs and then I would already have the PICC line in because they push a crap ton of medication through you during surgery and immediately after transplant. So I will likely have to have a PICC line placed just for that anyways. But we left it in for about 6 months. I did end up doing another 2-week course of antibiotics just to see if it would actually help clear up my sinus issues. I really need sinus surgery, but my lung function is too low to have that, and so I won't be doing that until after I get new lungs. So we left it in for 6 months, and then I was going to be traveling to my cottage, which is out of province and 18-hour drive away, and I didn't want to have to get set up with like home care there. So we pulled it because I wasn't really using it. But I got the hang of having it in. I mean, I like that you can cover it up and you can shower somewhat normally. I mean, it was a pain in the butt, but I had a protective sleeve for it that was like a weird kind of like latex bodysuit kind of material, and you would pull it up on your arm, and then there was a pump that would suck all the air out of it, and then it was an airtight seal. So that made showering a lot easier with the PICC line in. I guess that would be one pro to the port. I am assuming that you don't have to cover it every time you shower. Again, I don't know because I haven't had one. But I think the best bit of advice I guess I have in making the decision of what's best for you is not only just listening to yourself and what you're comfortable with and what you want, but what is easiest for access and long term and how often you're going to be using it. So I guess to kind of wrap things up here with my little Care Bears, she was just outside playing in the snow. They love all the snow we've been getting here, don't you? Yeah. Here's Ellie. But I guess to just kind of wrap up my tails flying, my rambling, that's my experience with PICC lines and my thoughts on a port for myself. Hopefully you guys have gotten a lot out of this week from everybody sharing their experiences and what they've used and what they prefer. I always find it interesting to see what everybody's opinions are on these like common use technologies for CFers and IVs, which are a common treatment for us, especially during cold and flu season, which is right now, which is why I tend to hibernate. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Share your thoughts and your opinions down below on our Instagram or on our Facebook. Let us know what you're thinking, and stay tuned for next week when we have our discussion is kind of continuing on. Excuse me. Continuing, on with our thoughts and reasoning behind when making the decision to go in hospital is the right decision to make. And for myself, I'll be talking a bit about also making the decision to list for lungs. So hopefully that is insightful and exciting for you guys. So stay tuned and remember to stay salty.